Marvel's newest Avenger, Captain Mar-Vell, is finally hitting the big screen this week. And while a lot of comic fans are probably more than aware of what the Kree warrior Carol Danvers can do, there's a pretty large portion of general audiences that more than likely have no idea who she is or what kind of powers she has. Luckily for you, I'm here to give you the basic rundown of her origins, powers, weaknesses, and any sort of special skills or talents that she might have. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Before we do though, why not click that subscribe button and maybe even ring the bell so that you can stay up to date with all of our upcoming film-related content. One last thing before we get into it. We will be taking a look at the mainline Earth 616 version of Carol Danvers, and some of what we talk about here isn't going to completely line up with what we see on screen, mainly the origin stuff I'd imagine. Powers should still be good to go though. Either way, it's still probably a good idea to have a bit of background information on the character before you jump into her first solo flick. So let's kick things off by taking a look at her comic origins. Created by Roy Thomas and Gene Colan, Carol Danvers first appeared in Marvel Superheroes number 13, alongside the original Captain Mar-Vell, Mar-Vell. No, not him, get that out of here. She was born to Joe Danvers Sr., a former Navy officer, and Marie Danvers, aka Mar-Vell, a Kree warrior who was stranded on Earth after her ship crashed. Before her superhero career got started in earnest, Carol served in the United States Air Force, and eventually as a security officer for NASA, which is where she became embroiled in Kree-related affairs. The Kree, by the way, are a race of alien warriors. You know, those blue guys that the villain from Guardians of the Galaxy is one of. Yeah, those. Anyways, Carol met up with Mar-Vell, palled around with him for a little bit, and eventually wound up facing off against Mar-Vell's evil commanding officer, Yon-Rogg. It didn't really end that well for Carol, or really well, depending on your viewpoint. During the fight between Mar-Vell and Yon-Rogg, Carol was knocked into a broken psychomagnetron, which is basically a Kree machine capable of warping reality, which effectively restructured her genetics, turning her into a superpowered being. Shortly thereafter, she took up the mantle of Miss Mar-Vell and began superheroing. Over the years, she's also called herself Warbird and Binary. We'll get to that last one in a little bit, don't you worry. Years later, after Mar-Vell sacrificed himself to save the Kree homeworld of Hala from the Phoenix Force, Carol cast aside Miss Mar-Vell and took on the title of Captain Mar-Vell in order to honor her fallen friend, which more or less leaves us off where we are today. Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige has said on numerous occasions that Captain Mar-Vell would be the most powerful hero in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. And looking at her power set in the comics, yeah, that actually sort of lines up. I mean, she is basically one of Marvel's analogs for Superman. Notice how I said one, since with her, Hyperion, and Sentry, Marvel loves to create versions of Superman. You know, when they aren't just using Supes himself, because that's happened a few times actually. But enough about Marvel's fascination with the Man of Steel, on to Carol's abilities. Captain Mar-Vell possesses the basic superhero powers: superhuman strength, speed, durability, agility, all of that usual stuff, on top of accelerated healing and of course the ability to fly, even through space. Now come on, you can't tell me you didn't expect her to be super strong or super fast. That's sort of like standard issue superhero powers right there. What isn't so standard though are her energy manipulation powers. Carol can absorb and discharge a variety of different types of energy. Taking in energy does quite a few things for her, including enhancing her already high levels of strength and speed. So yeah, she becomes even more super strong. Neat. She can even manipulate things on a molecular level, which is her way of always having her costume on her, as she can just transform any article of clothing into her outfit via this ability. Oh, and then there's that whole photon blast at her hands thing. Don't really need to explain it much beyond that. She can fire off photon beams. Pretty cool stuff right there. In terms of weaknesses, Marvel doesn't really like to give their superheroes one set physical item that they're weak against, like Superman's kryptonite, or Martian Manhunter's fire, or Green Lantern's wood? Really, Alan Scott? Really? Marvel character weaknesses tend to be more in their character flaws, so like Tony Stark's drinking, for example. With Captain Mar-Vell, it tends to be her mental state that sort of gives her issues. Like seriously, her experience with the psychomagnetron kind of left her broken and shattered her psyche for a number of years. In fact, when she first got started as Miss Marvel, she didn't even know that she was superheroing because she would black out and a separate personality would take over and do all the superhero stuff. So yeah, she's a little bit broken in that regard, but still totally capable. Now, Fans of the character may have noticed that I left out a few powers and abilities related to a little something called binary. I actually did that on purpose because Carol Danvers' experience as binary is deserving of its own section. During a particularly low point in Carol's life, she was abducted by the Brood, an insectoid race similar to the Zerg from StarCraft or the Xenomorphs from Alien. They subjected her to an evolutionary ray that hypercharged her already augmented genetics, transforming her into the godlike being Binary. As Binary, Carol was linked with the power of a white hole, which I guess is sort of like a black hole, only reversed. So instead of pulling matter and light in, it sort of pushes it out. Honestly guys, I don't know. I'm just going off of what I read on Wikipedia here. I'm not a quantum physicist. This topic is just a bit too complicated for just some guy who talks about movies on YouTube to really dive into. If you want to know more about white holes, like Google them, or you could even read a book. Bit of a shocker there. Or just like tweet at Hank Green, he usually knows that kind of stuff. This connection to the white hole further supercharged her already pretty overpowered power set, making her stronger, faster, and overall just more broken than before. She could now generate heat, light, and radiation, as well as affect gravitational fields and travel through space at the speed of light, completely unaided. Eventually, her connection to the white hole was severed when she gave up the binary powers to save the sun. However, whenever she absorbs an excess amount of energy through her normal energy absorption power, she can temporarily summon her binary abilities again, though doing so leaves her a bit weakened afterwards. It is sort of hard work to become a god temporarily. Can't really blame her. Finally, we come to Carol's non-superpowered skills and abilities, of which she has quite a few. Pre-Miss Mar-Vell Carol Danvers was still kind of a badass. As a member of the United States Air Force, Carol is, as one would expect, an extremely capable pilot. She can fly pretty much any plane, helicopter, or other aircraft known to man, as well as a multitude of different starships from the Kree, Shi'ar, and other spacefaring races. Speaking of the Kree and Shi'ar, Carol is fluent in the languages of both of those races, as well as 3 Earth languages. English and Russian are the only 2 that we know for sure, but in the comics she was listed as being fluent in 3 languages, so let's go with that. This multilingual ability, coupled with her military background, also made her a very formidable spy, which is why she was assigned to work on various undercover operations for Air Force intelligence. She has extensive training in both armed and unarmed combat techniques, as one would expect of a master spy slash superhero, and is even an accomplished writer and editor, having penned a tell-all book about her time working security for NASA, as well as acting as lead editor for Woman Magazine, an offshoot of the Daily Bugle that focused solely on a female demographic, with easily the lamest and blandest title for a magazine ever. Put all these powers, skills, and abilities together and you've got one Carol Danvers, who we will finally see on the big screen as Captain Mar-Vell real soon. Are you more excited to see Captain Mar-Vell now that you have a better grasp of her powers and abilities? What other characters would you like to see get a powers explained? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for all of our upcoming future releases. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.